It's been a big week in Northern Territory politics. Natasha Fyles was forced to resign as Chief Minister after it was revealed she had failed to declare shares she held in mining company South 32. Eva Lawler won the support of her caucus colleagues to become the Northern Territory's 13th Chief Minister. I spoke to her earlier today. Well, Eva Lawler, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Matt.
You said yesterday that your first priority is community safety. I was just having a look at the crime figures before, and there's significant increases over the past 12 months again in assaults, property break-ins. How has this situation become so dire?
And that's the million-dollar question, Matt. And my electorate is Palmerston, in Palmerston, a low socioeconomic area, and that's the number one question. Whether I'm at the markets, at the shopping centres, they're the conversations that are being had by people. And people hark back to the good old days in the Territory where you could leave your keys in the car and leave your doors open. So, Matt, I mean, the good news is that we have a relatively new police commissioner. So Michael Murphy is doing an outstanding job. I think he's very much focused on the issue that we talk about around crime and antisocial behaviour. He has made changes around his structures as well as putting in new units and very much focused on getting those resources in the right place. We've also got a new police minister, Brent Potter. He's got that portfolio very, very focused on what needs to be done. When it was Kate Warden's, poor Kate had a large number of other portfolios, so that's been part of the strategy to keep him very focused on police. So there's been and he's only had about 7 weeks, but I think we've already seen some improvements around that. The work that's happening in Alice Springs, where we've literally smothering the issue around summer and kids and things like that. I have also said, as the new Chief Minister and having a new deputy in, that we'll need to look at the policy settings. And governments need to do that absolutely going into election cycles. But now's the time to do that. So I'm very happy to do that. We'll work together as a cabinet. You've got Nari Kit in that Territory Families portfolio. Nari is an old Territorian. She's knows all the Indigenous families. She often knows these kids, and so she can have some really strong input in ways to address that issue.
You're going to look at the policy settings. Is that an admission, though, that you've got some of those things wrong over the past?
Well, I always use the analogy of the balloon, with alcohol policy, with youth crime, you constantly are looking and readjusting, and whether it's policy or resources, dollars, you're constantly having to do that. This isn't just an issue for the Northern Territory. You can read the media and see that, but it is, as an educator for a long time, it's a disappointing issue to see that young people aren't reaching their full potential. They're going on a trajectory to a life of crime, of petty crime, really often it is, all for the sake of what, So there is a lot of work that always has to be done in this area, and I'm very happy to continue to do that. But, you do need the resources of the public sector to be behind that too.
I think there'd be a lot of people members of the public, and probably people in your electorate, who feel that the consequences for people who do the wrong thing, particularly young people, aren't what they should be at the moment. And we spoke the other day about a 15-year-old who's charging at people with a machete at the Casuarina shopping centre, and he's taken home to a responsible adult. So do you think the consequences are where they need to be?
So and the policy settings are fine with that one. He shouldn't have been taken home, but we do need to be.
So why?
Well, that's right. I mean, and that's probably an answer for a question for the police commissioner and the Minister for Police really at the moment. I mean, but they're things that obviously I've been in the job a day. I'm half a day.
Well, they might be questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have spoken obviously to Michael Murphy by phone. He's been in Alice Springs. But I'll catch up with him between Christmas and New Year. But, people do want to see consequences. And that word feels a bit overused, but it is. And, as I said, I've been a teacher and, you're a parent. So, if a child does something wrong and, these are the children that we're talking about, to me, the consequences need to be more immediate, because it's no point in, disciplining your kid, taking their iPad away 2 days later for doing, something wrong, 2 days. And then particularly some of these kids that we're talking about are kids with fetal alcohol or really, developmental delays that are doing some of these behaviours. That's a fact, and that's not being soft on crime. It is an absolute fact that we have. We have in our schools about 36% of our students that are identified as having some sort of disability, higher than anywhere else in Australia. So, the consequences do need to be closer to the behaviour, so that absolutely we know about it, they know about it, and that they do need to be, increasing in severity. Early on, it needs to be something that absolutely makes a difference to their life then. And that's the work that NARI needs to do with families as well. I think if you're a 10 or 11-year-old that's on the street, there's absolutely, and I think we'd all agree, absolutely something going wrong in that family.
Well, that's an interesting point, because one of the things your government's done is raise the age of criminal responsibility only a few months ago. If you're saying you're going to look at the policy settings, is that on the table as well?
No, it's not. It's not on the, and I'll be very clear about that. It isn't on the table. I mean, that was a Royal Commission recommendation. But what is on the table is what we do better with those kids. As I said, a 10, 11, 12-year-old, if you're doing something wrong, like I say, what's going on in that family? What's the interventions that are needed by government agencies for that child to turn that child's life around before it's too late? Our youth detention facilities are full, our jail's full. My last budget, I was putting in demountable cells in Central Australia. So, we can't keep going along that trajectory. Also, as Treasurer, the cost of crime is huge. That impact on the territory is huge. So, we do need to address that. And, yes, we absolutely are, and previous Chief Ministers have, and I'm the next Chief Minister, but, we do have that opportunity to reset, to have a look at those policy settings. I think we're, getting some traction with Michael Murphy there, turning things, focusing things in a different way. We'll keep doing that.
The other big issue, and you talked about this yesterday, was the cost of living and the economy. It feels like our economy's just been stuck in sort of no man's land for a while now.
The state final demand is 1.9, so this is the reality of the world at the moment. I mean, you had the Ukraine conflict, and now you've got the Palestinian conflict. There's lots happening globally, as well as.
And some would say that opens up an opportunity for us with gas resources.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the question a lot of people are going to have, whether you are going to be a big supporter of the resources industry, of the gas industry, or whether...
I'm the biggest supporter of the onshore oil and gas industry, and have been from day one. I have also held the environment portfolio. I did a lot of the work around climate change, the policy work around climate change, a lot of the policy work around water. We have, I think, the strongest protections in the world around environmental protections around the onshore oil and gas industry. You have to have both. We know that. Territorians want both, but we do need an onshore oil and gas industry. With the offshore oil and gas industry, we see our gas going to Japan. We need jobs in the territory. We need, and Middle Arm provides about 20,000 jobs. But some of those jobs will come through renewables, because again, Jacana have put in for an expression of interest for 100 megawatts of renewables. I've got Larrakia Energy as well. There are lots of people that are very keen to put in renewables. We've got the water at Adelaide River off-stream water storage as well. So if you've got the water, you've got renewable energy, you have green hydrogen. So there's great opportunities into the future for the Northern Territory, and that's what Middle Arm's about. That's why I'll work hard. I've said I'll front the Senate inquiry, because we need those senators to understand, Sarah Hanson-Young, to understand the absolute benefit of the Middle Arm.
Well, they would say that if a key proponent at Middle Arm is the gas industry, and is the onshore gas industry in particular, then that's not something we should be doing. It's to the impact on emissions is too great, the impact on the environment's too great. We should shelve that all together.
That's right. So that's why you have carbon capture storage as well. You can't have no gas in the world right now. Yes, we all want a trajectory, and we've got our trajectory to 50% renewable by 2030. We've also got net zero. A lot of those gas companies have got net zero by 2040, earlier than our government as well. So, but you have to have gas. We can't just have renewables. That is an absolute fact. But yes, if we're going to have an onshore oil and gas industry, it has to be monitored very, very tightly. The federal government just put in the water trigger as well. So there'll be those assessments, but we already have assessments around water. We, in the Northern Territory, our government, our Labor government, is supportive of an onshore oil and gas industry. Right from the start, I've been supportive of the onshore oil and gas industry, because I can see the benefit. You can't say you want new schools, you want better hospitals if you don't have your own source revenue. We're reliant, as you know, on the GST coming from Canberra. And, as Treasurer, that can be really quite volatile. We've been fortunate in the last couple of budgets where it's been higher. Nicole Madison, when she was Treasurer, it dropped. It was about 3.6 billion over our 4
So we need to have our own source of revenue. And the other one, I suppose, just quickly because we're running out of time, is the Barossa project. We're seeing that stalled in the federal court. Lots of challenges being made on environmental grounds, on cultural heritage grounds. I mean, are you confident that's going to go ahead? Do you want to see it go ahead?
I absolutely want to go, and I want to see it go ahead. It's a $6 billion project. We have had an offshore oil and gas industry. We've got LNG, we've had Conoco, Darwin LNG, Ichthys. They've worked very successfully on our harbour. We have great relationships with IMPEC, some of the best relationships that our government has. We need the Barossa project to go ahead. But again, that's one of the key things. If you're doing business in the Territory, you do need to, in the world, you need to work with environmentalists. But in the Territory, you also need to work with traditional owners. And Santos, did they get that right early on? Maybe they didn't. But I know that they're working very hard on that project now around that. But we do need to have that project for the economy of the Northern Territory.
And finally, 10-second answer. Can you win the next election?
Absolutely. Yes, we can.
Eva Lawler, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Matt.